Hi everyone, this video is intended for RMIT industrial design footwear studios, but it's also very relevant for any learning in Blender. What we're going to be looking at today is how to put a logo onto a object with a material and have that material come through so that the logo of here, for example, looks like it's screen printed on. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to look here at this insole and go through how this insole is done. So without any further ado, let's get modeling. Okay, so I'm just going to add in a new window, and I'm just going to pull down from the top of the screen. And in here, I'll again isolate that. I'll unisolate this one, and I'm just going into my shader editor. And this is the shader editor for this material. So I'm just going to stick this up here like that and pull this right up. Okay. And what we can notice, just to have a quick look, is that this insole has a 3D texture. It has this screen printed, or could be foil embossed M logo, and then it has this nice sort of colourful red dot pattern run through it. And the way that all of that is done, I'll just push this up here, is that into the principal BSDF, what we've done is we have added in via Node Wrangler a particular material where we've got the color map, we've got a roughness, a normal, and a displacement. And we do that with Control-Shift-T on a PC with the principal BSDF selected, and all of the nodes come here via Node Wrangler and all plugged together. And what would typically happen is that if we plug this into here and we plug the color into the base color, what we would have is this yellow material, which is my base PBR material. And what I've done is I have disconnected the base color, and I have run that color via this mixed result here from memory. I should have watched when I pulled it out. No, it must be from here. Yeah, that's it there. So what I've got is this dark blue. So I've turned it into this dark blue color, and I've applied the factor. I've turned the factor up to 1 so that we're not blending between the yellow and this dark blue color. I've got it fully mixed into the base color, and I've got all these different materials mixed in there. Of note, in the displacement, I've turned that down from 1 in scale to 0.01001, and that gives me a more realistic bump on the material. If we made it 1, our model would go crazy, and it's disappeared. Where is it? There it is there. And it's got all this funny bumped texture on it. It's because of the clipping planes. Let's fix the clipping planes. Let's put an extra 2 zeros in there. Okay, and if I change this scale to 0.001, now we'll note if I zoom out to find my object, it's mapped that texture on much more realistically. Okay, so what I've done here is I have brought in another principal BSDF, and I've used a mix shader. And you can, a quick shortcut for a mix shader is Control Shift left mouse button and drag down, and you can join these, and then the mix shader will appear on there. And then if we plug that mix shader in, we'll note that we get our resultant graphic and our texture. Now, the way that is done is that I've brought in a image texture. So Shift A and texture, image texture. I've brought in the image texture, and I've gone and selected my artwork, which is a PNG file in black, with the M in black, and the rest is an alpha channel. And then I've got a mapping vector, and I've got a UV map. And you'll note that I've got these different UV maps here. Rather than using the texture coordinate and the UV for the texture coordinate, I am using a custom UV map. And the way to get that is Shift A and just type UV, and you'll get UV map, and then you can go in and select the particular UV that you want. And I've done the same thing up here for the dot swirl pattern, that red pattern. I have brought in the image texture. I've clipped the image texture so it doesn't repeat. If I turn clipping to repeat, then I'll get M's appearing everywhere over that. So if I turn that to clip, you can see that it's clipped. And I've done a little bit of scaling here, and I have my UV map for my M. I've got my UV map, it's called text, but it's actually for the dots. I probably should rename it dots, and I'll do that in this video. And I've got my UV map set 0. That's the default UV map that comes when you're in Blender. So if we take a look at this and we go to UV editing, which is where we are, if we just pull out another window and we go to the UV editor and we select this and we go tab, you can see here this is my UV map unwrapped for this insole. And what I've done is I've got 3 UV maps here, and I can select each one individually, and you'll actually see that they change in scale. And that's because each one is doing a different job. UV text is the UV map for the image that I've brought in for these red dots with an alpha channel on it. UV map M is actually where I've got my M logo here on this design. And UV set 0, this is the standard UV map for the texture. And I can just select A, and I can go U, and then U for unwrap, and I can unwrap that texture. And you'll note there that the texture changed. But I'm just going to go Control Z because I actually quite like how this texture is applied when the UV map looks like this. Now, the way that you get all of these maps is that we come over here to the data panel, and under vertex and shape keys, we click on UV maps, and we add our UV maps in here, and you can give them a name. So instead of text, let's just make this UV map. We'll call it UV map dot, and then press enter. Now that that's renamed, you'll note that these dots have disappeared. And the reason that those dots have disappeared, and you'll see here that it's gone red, is that I've changed the name. So if I just go down here to UV dots and I click it, now I've got the right UV map selected and the dots come back. So it's important to know when to turn on and off and activate different UV maps, but it's also important when you're in the UV editor to also know when to select which UV map you want, so that you can use the tools like how to unwrap, Smart UV Project, unwrap, minimize stretch. All those types of things are quite useful, and you need to remember that when you're using them on each particular UV map, it's really important there. So that wraps up really how you can bring in different texture images, and like here I've got the dot swirl image, here I've got my artwork image. They're all PNG files, and I've brought in a color. If I drop that down, then that M will go black. If here with my dots, if I drag this down, my dots will change color too. I think they're black also. And then what I've done is I've taken that mix color and I've plugged it into another mix color, into B, and I've taken my mix color from my base material and I've plugged that into A. And then I've done the same thing again. I've taken my logo and I've plugged that into B on another mix color, and I've plugged this resultant, which is the red dots and the underlying color, and I've plugged that into A. I've also taken the alpha channel and plugged it into the factor, and I did the same thing for the dot swirl. I plugged it into the factor here, and that knows how to mix these two colors, the dark blue and the red dots. That tells it to use the alpha channel, and if I unplug this, just for example, you'll see it's all disappeared. And if I grab my alpha and I plug that in, it knows to add it. If I do the same thing here, if I unplug that, we get that. If I turn the factor down, we get the base material. If I turn the factor up, we get a red material. But if I plug in the alpha, it knows where the dots exist, and we get that material. And then I put that into another principled BSDF where I have plugged in a bump for the height to get the bump showing through my material. So here the M has the bump running through it. If I disconnect that bump, you'll note that that looks very flat. If I plug this bump into the normal, then I get this nice texture flowing through from my underlying material. I've mixed them together. I could adjust this mix shader and adjust how all of this is mixed together and adjust its strength. And it looks, actually it looks pretty good there, like that. And then it's mixed into the material output. So there you have it. We've effectively got one material here using Node Wrangler. We've brought in our M logo. We've given it a mix color. So if we shift A and type in mix, we can get mix color. We can add that in. We've done a mix color for our dot swirl. We've got another mix, and we've taken our base material and the dots and put it together. We've got another mix, and we've taken the mixed result and our M logo and put it together, put it into this principled BSDF, and then mix these two together in order to get the resultant outcome that we're after. I hope that was useful for you and informative, and I look forward to seeing you in class next week.